that the police weren't here to protect or serve us. I was in middle school, maybe 7th grade, and we had an on-campus cop named Officer Pope. This one day during recess, these two kids that were in detention got into a fight. One of them had told the other one that it was his fault that his dad and his uncle died when he was younger, so he grabbed the folding metal chair he was sitting on and swung it at the kid's head. Luckily for the kid, he moved just quick enough that the chair hit his shoulder instead. I remember running over with everyone else to see what had happened. I remember seeing Officer Pope put the kid who swung the chair in handcuffs and walking him out of school. The kid who was crying because someone had just blamed him for the deaths of 2 family members. I'm one of the 14 protesters that was arrested last year on January 25th. A small group of us stood in the intersection at Yamhill and 5th in silence with our hands up, protesting the police brutality that we'd experienced on J20. 13 minutes later, I was pulled back by my backpack and slammed to the ground by Officer Dave Sanders. Before I could even process what was going on, 2 more riot cops got on top of me to hold me down. The police never told us to get out of the street. In fact, they never said anything to us. They parked their riot van by 6th and Taylor and snuck around the side of a TriMet bus we'd stopped a couple minutes prior. I told the officers they were holding me down I didn't consent to a search, and one of them replied, "We don't give a fuck how you feel." As soon as they pulled me up to start walking towards the squad car, I felt a sharp pain in my ankle. When I mentioned it, they brushed it off and made me walk faster. They searched me once more before I was put into the squad car. At one point, once I was finally in a holding cell, Officer Mooney came in to question me. And when I refused, he began to badmouth the other guy that was in the cell with me to try to turn me against him and onto their side. I told him I wasn't going to tell him shit, and he finally left me alone. At another point, a cop poked his head in to taunt me because he thought I was a different black activist, but when he saw me, the smug look on his face dropped and he quickly walked off. I used to have 2 legal names because of a government screw-up, so I gave both to Officer Sanders, and for some reason he couldn't figure out which name he wanted to put. Detective Dan Andrews then threatened to additionally charge me with providing false evidence because my arresting officer couldn't figure out which one he wanted to use. I was then yelled at because I was already in their system under a completely different name. It was my first time being arrested, and to this day I don't know why or how I was already in their system. Eventually I was moved to a hallway with everyone else that had been arrested, which was only 5 or 6 people at that point. As dumb as it sounds, we sat there mocking the police and their tactics for several minutes as various cops walked by. We'd all been in custody for at least an hour and we still hadn't been read our Miranda rights. I was searched 2 more times before I got to the jail. I warned the woman searching me that my ankle was hurt, but despite that, she firmly grabbed it and yanked up. By the time I was getting my mugshot taken, I could feel pain from head to toe. Every time I was called up to do something, I was yelled at for walking slowly and forced to move faster, despite them knowing my ankle was injured. I could hear them laughing quietly every once in a while like they were spectators to a show. If you ever want to feel like you're an animal, like you're worth nothing, Multnomah County Jail is the perfect place to be.
Rufus car right quick.
Okay.
When I went to the hospital to get myself checked out, they told me I had a concussion, whiplash, a sprained ankle, and 100 to 130 bone contusions. I was the only person released that night that didn't get their phone back. I was also the only black person that was released that night. Portland Police Bureau kept my phone for 2 months afterwards and attempted to unlock it multiple times. I'm assuming to look for something. When my mom called Officer Sanders to find out why I hadn't gotten my phone back yet, he told her that she should be more concerned about the possibility that I was being sexually assaulted by someone that I considered to be my best friend. When I went back to the town I grew up in, the majority of my friends wanted to talk about my arrest, which I gladly told them about. They also wanted to watch the video, which I would find for them, but I didn't watch with them. A lot of times I would even leave the room, and most people never understood why. For me, when I see the video of my arrest, it brings me back to that moment. It's a moment of pure fear, a moment that made me lose sleep for months afterwards, all because of 13 minutes. I can hear me yelling out to my friends in a panic because none of them saw me get snatched back. I can hear the fear in my voice, the fear that PPV could make me disappear, the fear that PPV could kill me. I grew up getting harassed by the police, and I'm not gonna lie, I was fucking terrified. And that fear, that's something no one should ever have to experience. I want little black kids to grow up in a world where they don't ever have to know that fear, where they can go outside and play in peace like the rest of the kids, where they don't have to worry about adults verbally and physically attacking them because for some reason people look at black kids like they're grown-ass adults. I want little black kids to be able to be little black kids. I don't want another Tamir Rice.
Right on!
I'm thankful to all my brothers and sisters that came before me, that went through much more than me so that I could grow up in a world that was better than theirs. It's our job now to make things better for the next generations, and I won't stop until we break down every institution that was built to oppress my people.
So before we get to our next speaker, I just want to make everybody aware, make sure that they're comfortable with the fact that the riot cops are on the on second behind the building, ready, waiting, armed. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of the situation that they have caused again today, and to just know that going in and consent to being here with that information. Next up, we've got my good friend Sarah Stalker. Alright, so since they're already armed, you guys know how I do. Let's just start this shit off with a little chant. Yeah? Yeah?
Yeah.
A-C-A-B!
All cops are bastards.
A-C-A-B!
All cops are bastards.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Because they certainly fucking are. It's actually nervous when Jenny asked me to speak because
All right.
I recently came out last year, at the end of the year at City Hall, when the police were talking about being involved in the crisis center that's over there at Gateway. And I felt like I really just needed to finally come out about being sexually assaulted by the cops when I was 15. Being stopped in North Portland by Portland police. And given over by a member of my own family to be sexually assaulted and molested by the police while the other one stood guard. So that whole not all cops are bad, I don't see a whole lot of them coming forward to speak out against the ones that are bad. So yeah, they're fucking bad. Even the ones that are retired still hang out with cops. So yeah, they're fucking bad. They're all bad. If you hang out with those kind of people, if you back them up, if you associate with them, if you talk to them, you're fucking bad too. It's not a good idea. And then I have a lot of people say, well, what would you do without the police? What do we do if we can't call the police? Well, there's a lot of examples of calling the police leading to an escalation of the situation. We all read the reports about people who call the police because they feel like there's a burglar around their house and then their baby gets blown up or they get shot and killed by the cops. You guys remember the Lint siege in Australia, right? The Lint Cafe siege? One of the hostages was killed by the cops. You remember, unfortunate, our brothers and sisters killed in the Pulse nightclub shooting. We don't have all the video of that because there's a lot of evidence that suggests that a lot of those hostages were killed by cops when they entered the building. Police do not de-escalate. Specifically speaking about the Portland police, they're not even trained in de-escalation. These guys walked into a homeless shelter where people were already traumatized with varying mental disabilities and traumatized them further by murdering somebody right in front of them who couldn't have harmed them from being around the corner or behind a pillar 12 feet away, facing down 12 men with AR-15s. Come on. They don't de-escalate. They shoot kids. They shoot people who call them. They don't show up. They don't show out. They don't educate to de-escalate. They're not trained to handle mental crisis. And they don't give a shit about your problems. Calling the police, not an answer, but how do you get around that? Well, there's a couple of things. You give policing back to the communities, and what does that look like? You organize with people of color in your community that have stood out as community leaders who say, hey, I've got a plan, and I feel like this plan is going to work because I live a more at-risk life than you do. So this is the daily life I have to live, and let me show you how I try to live that safer. You get behind these folks and you galvanize with them and you support their voices and you listen to what their version of community policing looks like. And I guarantee you it doesn't look like their version of policing at all. Form neighborhood watches. Get together, know your neighbors. Don't be shy about where you stand. That's how you're going to find the other people that also stand with you. And talk to these folks. Go door to door. Go church to church. Go to the schools. Introduce yourself and make sure that you know your neighborhood like the back of your hand. Be willing to volunteer for patrols. Be willing to document and remember. Be willing to make a stand if there are threats that come into your community. How are you going to feel comfortable taking a stand? Well, you've got to set up community defense training. Find somebody in your community or somebody who's not in your community to help your community learn how to defend itself from little teeny tiny tots all the way to the oldest people in our community. People who are able-bodied and those who are not deserve to know how to defend themselves. And I'll tell you, an asshole that's thinking about being an asshole is less likely to come into your community and be an asshole if everybody in that community can turn their balls into powder. Okay? That's how you keep that shit out of your community. We can all whoop your ass, and we will. Don't come in here with your shit. Have lots of community gatherings and activities to uplift your community, be a part of your community, engage in your community, know your neighbors. Potlucks, picnics, parties, whatever it takes, whatever it looks like for you. Boycott the NFL. If you're still watching football, stop watching football. Okay? Get behind Colin Kaepernick and amplify his protest and stop fucking giving them your money. God damn it. Stop. Learn basic triage and first aid. You should have a first aid kit in your home, dwelling, or otherwise near you. If you don't, reach out to folks like me. I'll help you get set up. I love doing that stuff. If you need some, there are people in this community who want to reach out and make sure that you have the things that you need to stay safe, including that training that I mentioned before. Reach out. We would love to know that the people in our community have the basic ability to defend themselves. This is all super important because people are dying and women are being brutalized, children are being brutalized. It is a very sad world when years have passed and there's still no answer about why a little boy can't play with a water gun in a park. Okay? It is a sad world when police can, fill somebody full of bullets for taking off their seatbelt after being told to get out of the car. It's a sad day when a 15-year-old girl gets sexually assaulted by Portland police in the middle of the night, then 2 months later gets raped and almost murdered in her home and realizes there is nowhere for me to go. I just have to deal. They take away safe spaces for people who are even more at risk and live a more terrible life with their struggles than even I do. Stop supporting the police. Because like people who supported Trump are finding out, you can't actually separate from the shit that they do. You're either against it, and that looks like taking a stand on the opposite side, or you're for it and okay with it and part of the problem. Stop pretending that all cops are not bad and that there are some good ones. Because those ones that are really good would throw that fucking badge on the ground and be here right now standing up against those motherfuckers. We can't even gather in a fucking park to talk amongst ourselves and engage with our community without them lining up on the other side of the building with a whole bunch of weaponry to come and oppose us.
Intimidation.
It's intimidation. It is a threat to make you stay silent so that you won't stand up. This kind of attitude goes all the way back past the days of the Civil War where if you won't take it, we will fucking make you take it. Well, we're not going to take it anymore, whether they try to fucking make us do that or not. They are not scary, even if they do decide to remove our rights. And it is definitely worth the risk to stand up to them. So I encourage you all to reach out to each other, think about the things that I've mentioned here. Get behind the communities of color. Get behind leaders of color in your community. And for the ignoramuses, I'm talking get behind black people. I'm talking get behind brown people. I'm talking about getting behind people that are indigenous to this fucking country. People that fucking own the land that we're standing on right now, where I have the opportunity to fucking speak. I'm talking about even myself. When somebody of color is speaking, shut the fuck up. Hear what they have to say. Because if you're white, you have no fucking idea what you're talking about standing next to them and their risk. Amplify their voices. Stop the narcissism and stop being so toxic to each other.